Yu Menglong's son sings his father's unreleased song, bringing fans to tears. On the night of April 27th, 2026, the internet did something rare. It slowed down. Not because there was nothing to see, but because millions of people across China and beyond were watching the same thing at once. A single video, a dimly lit stage, a trembling voice that sounded heartbreakingly familiar, yet new. It was the night Yu Minglong's son stepped into the light for the first time, and the night the world heard a voice they thought had been buried forever. The date is burned into the memory of his fans. September 11th, 2025. The day Yu Menglong died. The official reports were cold, clinical, and painfully brief. A sudden death. An investigation. No clear answers that satisfied the public. His name, once echoing across drama screens and music charts, was reduced overnight to headlines filled with shock and disbelief. But for those who followed him closely, something never felt complete. Yu Menglong wasn't just an actor or singer. He was a storyteller, a man who carried emotions in his voice like secrets waiting to be told. And then, without warning, his story ended mid-sentence. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. Months after his death, rumors began to circulate quietly within fan circles. There was talk of an unreleased song, not just any song, but one Yu Menglong had been working on in private during the final weeks of his life. A piece so personal that even his closest collaborators had never heard the full version. At first, it sounded like the kind of myth fans create to cope with grief, until fragments surfaced. A few seconds of audio leaked anonymously, a raw vocal line. No instruments, just Yu Menglong's voice, fragile and haunting, singing words that felt like a goodbye disguised as a promise. The internet erupted, but just as quickly, everything vanished. Clips were deleted, accounts disappeared. The silence returned, heavier than before. Throughout his career, Yu Menglong kept one part of his life fiercely private, his son. There were no public appearances, no interviews, no photographs confirmed by his management team. Fans knew he existed, but he was more legend than reality. Some believed Yu Menglong wanted to protect him from the pressures of fame. Others thought there was something deeper, something hidden. After Yu Menglong's death, the mystery only grew. Who was his son? Where was he? And why had no one from his family spoken publicly? For months, there were no answers. Until April 2026, the event wasn't heavily promoted. A small music showcase in Shanghai, a lineup of emerging artists. Nothing that suggested it would become one of the most talked about moments of the year. But minutes before the final act, the lights dimmed unexpectedly. The host returned to the stage, visibly shaken. His voice, usually polished and confident, carried an unusual weight. He didn't introduce the performer with excitement. He introduced him with silence. And then he said a name no one expected to hear that night. Tonight, we welcome someone who has never stood on a stage before. Someone who carries a story that belongs to all of us. A pause. He is the son of Yu Menglong. The room froze. Cameras lifted. Phones started recording. Whispers spread like electricity through the audience. And then, from the shadows, he walked out. He wasn't what people expected. There was no dramatic entrance, no attempt to imitate his father's style. He looked ordinary. A young man in simple clothes, his face calm, but his hands betraying a slight tremble. But when he reached the microphone and lifted his head, something shifted. Because in that moment, everyone saw it. The resemblance, not just in his features, but in his eyes. The same quiet intensity Yu Menglong carried on screen. The same sense that there was something deeper beneath the surface, something unspoken. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't explain why he was there. He simply said, "This was my father's song." And then the music began. Or rather, it barely did. A single piano note, slow, almost hesitant, as if even the instrument was unsure it should be heard. And then he sang. The first line broke something in the room. It wasn't just that his voice resembled Yu Menglong's, it was how it carried emotion. Raw, unfiltered, as if every word was being pulled from somewhere deep inside him. But there was a difference. Where Yu Menglong's voice had been polished, controlled, perfected through years of experience. His son's voice was fragile, unsteady at times, real. And that's what made it devastating. Because it didn't feel like a performance. It felt like a conversation. As the song unfolded, the audience began to realize something chilling. The lyrics. They weren't generic. They weren't abstract. They were specific. Lines about unfinished conversations, about promises that couldn't be kept, about watching someone leave without being able to follow. And then came the line that would later be quoted across social media millions of times. If I disappear before the morning comes, don't look for me in the dark. I've already left my voice where your heart remembers. People stopped breathing because it didn't sound like fiction. It sounded like Yu Menglong knew. Halfway through the song, something unexpected happened. The music faded, and for a brief moment, there was silence. Then, another voice joined in. Yu Menglong's voice, the original recording. It wasn't clear how it had been preserved or why it had never been released. But suddenly, father and son were singing together, across time, across absence, across death. The son didn't stop. He kept singing, his voice blending with his father's in a way that felt almost unreal, like two timelines overlapping, like the past refusing to stay buried. By the time the song reached its final chorus, the audience wasn't just emotional, they were shattered. When the last note faded, there was no immediate applause, just silence. The kind of silence that only exists when people are trying to process something they don't fully understand. Then, slowly, someone stood, then another, and another, until the entire room was on its feet. But even the applause felt inadequate, because how do you clap for something that feels like a goodbye? Within hours, clips of the performance began to circulate online. By morning, it was everywhere, trending across Chinese platforms, reposted globally, subtitled in multiple languages, watched millions of times within a single day. Fans who had mourned Yu Menglong months earlier found themselves grieving all over again. But this time, it was different, because there was something new mixed into the sorrow. Closure, or at least, something close to it. As the video spread, more details began to emerge. Sources close to Yu Menglong revealed that the song had been recorded just weeks before his death. It was never meant for immediate release. In fact, some claimed he had hesitated to share it at all. Why? Because it was too personal, too revealing. There were whispers that he had written it during a period of intense emotional struggle, that he had poured into it things he couldn't say out loud. And then he was gone. The recording was left unfinished until his son found it. No one knows exactly when he discovered the song or how long he spent deciding what to do with it, but those close to him say it wasn't an easy choice. Releasing it meant stepping into a spotlight he had avoided his entire life. It meant opening a door to public scrutiny, to expectations, to comparisons he could never fully escape. And yet, he did it anyway. Not as a debut, not as a career move, but as a message. In the days that followed, the performance was analyzed, discussed, and replayed endlessly. Some focused on the technical aspects, the vocal similarities, the composition, the production. Others focused on the emotional impact. But the most powerful reactions came from those who saw it for what it truly was, a conversation that death couldn't end. Because in that moment on stage, it didn't feel like Yu Menglong was gone. It felt like he was still there, still speaking, still singing. Even now, weeks after April 27th, 2026, one question continues to linger. Was the song meant to be found? Was it a coincidence that his son discovered it and chose this moment to share it? Or was it something more intentional? Something left behind, waiting for the right time and the right voice? No one knows for sure. What is certain is this. Yu Menglong's story didn't end on September 11th, 2025. Not really. Because as long as his voice continues to echo, through recordings, through memories, through the son who now carries a part of him forward, his presence remains, not as a ghost of the past, but as something still alive in the present. At the end of the viral video, just before it cuts off, there's a moment many people missed on their first viewing. As the applause fades, Yu Menglong's son steps back from the microphone. For a second, he looks up, just slightly. For 3 days after the performance on April 27th, 2026, nobody in China talked about anything else. Not politics, not celebrity scandals, not the stock market. Nothing. Every screen carried the same image. A young man standing beneath dim blue lights, singing beside the ghost of his father's voice. People replayed the video obsessively. Some watched it once and cried. Others watched it 20 times, searching for hidden meanings buried inside the lyrics. But what disturbed people most wasn't the song itself. It was the feeling the performance left behind. Because it didn't feel planned. It felt unfinished. Like there was still something Yu Menglong wanted to say. And somewhere in the middle of the internet chaos, one detail quietly began to spread. At exactly 2:17 a.m., only hours after the performance ended, Yu Menglong's son uploaded a single post to his private account. No caption, no explanation, just a photograph. An old recording studio. Dark. Empty. One microphone standing alone in the center of the room. And in the corner of the image, barely visible beneath the dim light, were 4 handwritten words on a notebook page. Play track number 7. That was all it took. The internet exploded again. Fans immediately began investigating the photograph. Within hours, online detectives identified the location as a private recording studio in Beijing that Yu Menglong had allegedly rented secretly throughout mid-2025. What shocked people wasn't the studio itself. It was the timeline. According to leaked records, Yu Menglong had visited the studio repeatedly during the final month before his death on September 11th, 2025. Sometimes late at night, sometimes staying until dawn. No producers were listed. No official projects were announced. It was as if he had been recording something in complete secrecy. And suddenly, people began asking terrifying questions. What exactly had he been working on? And why was track number 7 important? On the 4th day after the performance, another strange event occurred. A longtime fan from Chengdu uploaded a trembling video claiming she had received an anonymous package outside her apartment door. Inside was a small cassette tape. No sender, no fingerprints. Only a label written in black ink. For the ones who stayed. At first, people thought it was fake, until she played it. The audio quality was terrible, distorted and filled with static, but underneath the noise, a voice could be heard. Yu Menglong, speaking softly, almost whispering. I don't know if this recording will ever be heard, but if it is, then maybe I was right to leave it behind. The clip spread online faster than wildfire. Millions listened. Millions froze. Because his voice didn't sound like a celebrity recording a message for fans. It sounded like a man preparing for disappearance. More stories started surfacing. Studio workers who had remained silent for months finally spoke anonymously to reporters. One employee described Yu Menglong as completely different during his last visits. He looked exhausted, the worker said. Not physically, emotionally, like someone carrying something too heavy to survive. Another employee claimed Yu Menglong often asked to work alone in complete darkness. No lights, no assistance, just the recording booth. And according to one chilling statement, he repeatedly recorded the same line over and over again. If my son ever hears this, then silence. Every time. He never finished the sentence. On May 2nd, 2026, 5 days after the performance, Yu Menglong's son appeared publicly for the first time in an interview broadcast online. The entire country watched. He wore black. No makeup, no celebrity styling, just exhaustion. His eyes looked swollen, as if he hadn't slept since the performance. For the first 30 seconds, he said nothing. The interviewer seemed nervous, almost afraid to push too hard. Then finally, she asked the question everyone wanted answered. How did you find the song? The room went silent, and then he answered. In his apartment. He paused. 3 months after the funeral. According to him, nobody had touched Yu Menglong's private apartment since his death. Everything remained exactly where it was. His books, his jackets, half-finished cups of tea, even the piano near the window still had fingerprints on the keys. I couldn't go inside at first, his son admitted quietly. Every time I opened the door, it still smelled like him. The interviewer lowered her eyes. Even the staff behind the cameras reportedly began crying at that point. But then he continued. One night I stayed there alone. Outside, rain hit the windows. The city lights flickered across the dark apartment. And sometime after midnight, he noticed something strange. Music, very faint, coming from another room. Yu Menglong's son revealed there had been one room in the apartment nobody entered after the funeral, his private music room. The door had remained locked for months, but that night, the sound was coming from inside. At first, he thought someone had broken in, but when he approached the door, he realized the music wasn't playing loudly. It was barely audible, like a recording left unfinished. He said his hands were shaking as he unlocked it, and when the door opened, the room was dark, except for one blinking light. A recording console still powered on, waiting. On the console screen was a single paused project file, untitled, no date. Only one instruction typed into the notes section. If he comes here one day, let him hear this first. The interviewer reportedly stopped the recording for 10 minutes because Yu Menglong's son became too emotional to continue. When filming resumed, his voice was quieter. I pressed play. That was the first time he heard the unreleased song, not the finished version, not the performance version, the original. Raw, incomplete. And according to him, the recording nearly destroyed him. He described hearing his father stop singing multiple times during the session, sometimes to breathe, sometimes because he was crying. At one point in the recording, Yu Menglong apparently whispered, "I don't know how to explain this to you." Then silence. Then the sound of a chair moving. Then footsteps. As if he had walked away from the microphone because the emotions became too overwhelming. When the interviewer asked why he decided to release the song publicly, his answer shattered viewers. Because I realized he wasn't singing to the world. A pause. He was singing to me. For years, the public imagined Yu Menglong as a perfect father hidden behind privacy. But the truth was more complicated. According to his son, fame created distance between them. Long filming schedules, months apart, missed birthdays, conversations interrupted by work calls. There were times I hated him, he admitted. The confession shocked the audience. I thought he chose the world over me. And then came the line that broke social media completely. But after he died, I realized he spent his entire life trying to leave pieces of himself behind so I would never feel alone. Within minutes, clips of the interview flooded every platform online. People weren't just crying anymore. They were grieving alongside him. But the deepest shock came later that night. At the very end of the interview, the host revealed there was one final thing Yu Menglong's son wanted to share. A video, never before seen, recorded on September 3rd, 2025, just 8 days before Yu Menglong died. The screen faded to black. Then slowly, grainy footage appeared. A studio room, dim lights, rain outside the windows. Yu Menglong sitting alone at a piano. He looked thinner than fans remembered, tired, not physically broken, but emotionally exhausted in a way that made viewers uncomfortable. Because this was not the glamorous celebrity they knew. This was a human being collapsing quietly in private. For nearly 30 seconds, Yu Menglong said nothing in the footage. He simply stared at the piano keys. Then finally, he spoke. "If you're watching this," he stopped, took a breath, and smiled weakly. "Then I probably ran out of time." The internet collectively froze. Even now, people say the atmosphere online during that live stream became terrifyingly silent. Yu Menglong continued speaking softly. "I wasn't afraid of dying." Another pause. "I was afraid my son would never understand how much I loved him." Then he looked directly into the camera, eyes red, voice trembling. "I hope he forgives me for all the moments I wasn't there." After speaking, Yu Menglong began playing the piano. Not professionally, not perfectly, just softly, almost absent-mindedly. The melody was the same unreleased song his son later performed. But halfway through, he stopped playing because he started crying. Real crying. The kind people tried desperately to hide. For several seconds, he covered his face with his hands while the camera kept recording. Nobody watching the live stream could handle it. Comment sections reportedly moved so fast they crashed multiple platforms. People wrote things like, "This doesn't feel like watching a celebrity. This feels like reading someone's final diary." And he knew. Before the footage ended, Yu Menglong looked towards someone off camera. Nobody knows who was there. Maybe nobody. Maybe he was imagining the future. Then he said the final recorded line of his life. If someday he sings this song,